You ever have one of those days where you pull into your driveway after work just looking forward to a quiet evening, and instead you roll up on something that could have come straight off reality TV? That was me 1 minute. I'm fishing my keys out of my bag. The next, I spot a police cruiser idling by our little community pond, which never happens unless you know someone's about to get chewed out by the HOA in Oakwood Heights. That always means one thing, and Karen Petton, our HOA president, is at it again. The whole neighborhood knows the drill by now. Her crusades, her power trips, her relentless quest for order. And today, I guess Walter Garrison was her target. 78-year-old Vietnam vet, lived here longer than most of us have been alive. And there, he was just minding his business, fishing pole in hand, looking for all the world like he was immune to drama. I wish that were true. I can still hear Karen before I even round the bend. Her voice is one of those you feel in your spine, shrill and sharp, slicing straight to the golden late afternoon. She's standing there, arms crossed so tight you'd think she was holding herself together, her HOA president badge gleaming on her lapel like a sheriff's, star blonde hair bouncing in righteous fury, throwing around official words at a kid cop who looks like he just finished his first year on the job. Walter, meanwhile, is sitting there in his old fishing hat, not even turning to acknowledge the storm brewing. Behind him, the way she kept gesturing with that thick manila folder, you'd think she was unveiling a new constitution, not trying to kick an old man off a pond bench. Here's where it gets interesting. And if you've ever wondered how a single bad decision can cost an entire community $2 million buckle up, let me back up a sec. Walter's been here since 92 back, when this place was just farmland, a couple gravel roads, and a pond locals had fished for generations. His house sits on the edge of 3 acres pond as his backyard. He's been walking down there every morning, rain or shine, sometimes with grandkids, mostly alone for over 3 decades. Peaceful, simple inner Karen, who bought that big house at the top of Hill Rest 2 years ago, and within 6 months she'd wrangled her way to HOA president. That's when everything started changing. The mailbox rules, paint color lists. I swear she only approved 50 Shades of Beige landscaping like we all live at Augusta National. And then finally, the big one, the pond, she wanted it to be exclusive. Some fancy HOA amenity, special access permits, and of course a $50 monthly fee. That's Karen's idea community. Well, this morning she shows up in her Powers suit, even though it's Saturday, and walks right up to Walter like she's about to bust a crime ring. She reads off HOA bylaws, threatens trespassing, and when he won't even look up from his bobber, she calls the cops. Yes, she called 911 because a 78-year-old man was fishing. That's where I come in, because by the time I get there, half the neighborhood is gathered. Janet from next door is there with her dog phones, are out recording. And I guess there's this feeling in the air, a little nervous, a little excited, like maybe we're finally going to see Karen get her comeuppance. The young officer tries to play peacemaker. He asks Walter where he lives. Walter just points through the trees at his house. Cool. As you please. Karen starts a routine, shuffling her folder, talking about property values, HOA rights, and she's really on a roll when she mentions the $2 million value of the pond. The cop actually looks at her papers, but then he turns to Walter, asks if he got any proof. Walter just opens up his battered tackle box and pulls out this old envelope, like something you'd find in your granddad's desk, hands it to the officer, and everyone goes quiet as a deed from 1992. The cop calls the county records office right there, and you can feel the tension building. Karen's tapping her foot. Shooting looks at the crowd like, see what happens when you defy me? 3 minutes later, the officer hangs up, and the look on his face says it all turns out the pond and a 50-foot easement around it, never legally transferred to the HOA. Clerical error. The public trust actually owns it with explicit rights tied to Walter's deed. So not only does Walter have access, he might be the only one in the neighborhood with official rights. The HOA's been enforcing rules on land it doesn't even own. Karen starts sputtering, literally her face cycling through 5 different shades of red, demanding to speak to the supervisor. But the news is already spreading. People are checking the HOA website on their phones. Someone yells about refunds, and suddenly Karen's fortress of control starts looking a lot more like a sand castle at high tide. Within an hour, 2 county officials show up. A no-nonsense woman named Patricia Holloway leads the charge. She issues a cease and desist, tells Karen to refund every penny of those permit fees, and just to twist a knife, says the county will audit every HOA property claim going back to its founding. But Patricia isn't done. She makes Karen stand by the pond and apologize with Walter still fishing in the background. Some folks actually clap. Others start asking Walter if they can join him. And just like that, you can feel the neighborhood start to breathe again, that weird tension, that always walking on eggshells thing Karen created gone at least an hour back at home that night. I hear the fallout from the emergency HOA meeting 3 board. Members resign, don't want their names on this disaster. The rest scramble lawyer up and discover not only do they owe thousands in refunds, but the HOA's asset value just dropped by over $2 million. Overnight insurance gets involved, wondering if Karen's actions count as negligence. But see, there's a twist nobody saw coming. Walter had actually tried to warn Karen about the pond months. Before, after her first board meeting, he'd showed her the same envelope, offered to go to the county together. But she just brushed him off, told him old-timers need to accept change. She never listened, never cared about the history, didn't even know his family owned the original farm this place was built on, and that his dad had written those access rights in the county record in black and white before most of us were even born than the local news. Picks it up, runs a headline. HOA president calls. Cops on elderly vet loses $2 million. Asset the cherry on top. Turns out Karen's been sending threatening letters to residents about the pond, raking in more than $15,000 in bogus permit fees, and even convinced the board to take out a loan for pond improvements on land the HOA never owned. Now the state attorney general is involved. Word is Karen listed the pond as a community asset on loan applications and in marketing, which might actually count as fraud. Her real estate license, that little badge of credibility she always waved around, is suddenly under review. Fast forward to the special meeting, clubhouse packed, standing room. Only for once people aren't afraid to speak up. The treasurer drops the bombshell. Not just $2 million in lost assets, but another $800,000 in potential legal. Exposure to the mood in the room. Electric. People start listing all the random fines Karen's handed out, like the $500 she charged a widow down the street for a non-compliant mailbox, or the disabled vet she threatened with a lawsuit over his wheelchair ramp. It's like the neighborhood's been waiting for years to get all this off their chests. And now it's open season. The vote to remove Karen isn't even close. 212-3. She stands at the podium, frozen mouth, working like she wants to say something. But there's nothing left to say. Then comes a vote to go after her personally for damages. 198-17. The board's lawyer gets up and spells it out. Karen could be personally liable for over $300,000, not even counting possible fraud charges. Someone in the back yells out that the state's looking at up to 5 years in prison. And that's when Karen bolts, papers flying, heels echoing down the hall, a full-on sprint to her Mercedes. I wish I could say that's where the story ends, but honestly, it feels more like the start of something new. The pond's open. People are talking again. There's this weird hope in the air, but the mess Karen made is going to stick around for a while. Some folks want to sue, others just want their money back. And there's still an audit coming down the pipe. You know, sometimes it takes a public mess to finally get neighbors on the same side. So what do you think? Was justice served? Or did it go too far? Was Karen just a victim of bad paperwork? Or did she get exactly what she deserved? I really want to hear your take on this. Drop a comment. Tell me where you stand. Because if there's one thing this story proves, it's that sometimes the biggest drama in life happens right in your own backyard.